like to call the meeting to order. It is December 3rd, 7 p.m., and this is our regular meeting of the Ottawa City Commission. Could we have the roll call, please?
Mayor Reed.
Present.
Commissioner Skidmore.
Present.
Commissioner Jorgensen.
Present.
Commissioner Dickinson.
Present.
Commissioner Taylor.
Present.
We are all present. I'd like to welcome everyone this evening that's in the chambers and those watching and listening on the radio and watching on Government Access Channel. We'll begin the meeting with our Pledge of Allegiance and then an invocation led by our Finance Director. Is that okay? Mr. Byrd? Okay.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
What a day. What a great day. A historic day in the city of Ottawa. We're going to try this, and if any of you know it, you can join with me. In fact, I might need you to carry me. For all that you've done, I will thank you. For all that you're going to do. For all that you've promised, and all that you are, is all that has carried me through. Jesus, I thank you, and I thank you, Lord, and I thank you, Lord. Thank you for loving and setting me free. Thank you for giving your life just for me. How I thank you. Gratefully thank you. Jesus, I thank you. And I thank you. Amen.
Scott. Man of many talents. The first thing on our agenda this evening is our consent agenda, and I don't think we have any minutes this evening, but we do have a full list of cereal malt beverage licenses for the year 2015, and I guess some of these, the difference between these, Betty, are renewals.
They are all renewals. The difference would be that some are for not consumption
Oh,
on
okay.
premises and others are for consumption on premises.
Okay, thank you. And those businesses and their physical addresses are all listed there. So with that, I would entertain a motion to accept our agenda and those applications.
Madam Mayor,
Commissioner.
I move that we approve the consent agenda as listed on the agenda available on our website.
And is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Our agenda has been approved. Do we have anyone registered for public comments this evening?
No, ma'am.
Nope. So we will dispense with reading that paragraph and move on down to number 9, which is our declaration. So at this time, I'd like to give commissioners a chance to declare any conflict or any communication they've had that might influence their ability to consider today's issues impartially. Anyone? Okay, we will move right on into new business and begin with item number 10, please.
Ordinance for conditional use permit at 104 North Elm.
This is an ordinance to allow the keeping of farm animals on the property located at 104 North Elm in an R2 medium density district. The Planning Commission recommends approval by a vote of 5-0, and our Planning Director, Mrs. Lee, will discuss this with us.
Good evening, Commissioners. As you recall, a month ago, we asked you to adopt an ordinance change to allow the keeping of farm animals by conditional use by the same applicant who asked for that amendment change. So following that amendment change, they did in fact put in a conditional use application to ask for up to 50 chickens and 2 ponies at this location. The Planning Commission held a public hearing. There was no public comment. The owner was present. The property is at 104 North Elm, which you said. It's almost 3 acres, 2.75. Part of the discussion in the past has been that at one time this property did have agricultural uses, but the neighbors were not opposed, and some of them had even written a letter signed a petition in the first action that we discussed with them. So we did recommend some conditions to you that should probably be on the record. Those conditions are that no more than 50 chickens be there and the 2 ponies. All animals must be maintained on the subject property. A coop and fenced area of appropriate size should be provided for the poultry, but it must be at least 35 feet from any property line. No roosters may be kept, and the ponies must be kept in a fenced area as well. Planning Commission recommends adoption of this conditional use by 5-0 vote. Any questions?
Mrs. Lee, what is considered a pony?
The ordinance change required that at the shoulders that the pony be 36 inches or shorter.
Any other questions for Mrs. Lee?
Madam Mayor,
Commissioner?
I move to adopt the ordinance as described in item 10 of the
Is there a
agenda.
second? Oh, I'm sorry.
I'll second that.
It has been moved and seconded to accept the ordinance as stated in item 10 for the conditional use permit. Is there any discussion? Could we have a vote, please?
How do you vote? Commissioner Skidmore?
Yes.
Commissioner Jorgensen?
Yes.
Commissioner Dickinson?
Yes.
Commissioner Kaler?
Yes.
Mayor Reed?
I vote yes, motion carries. Item number 11.
An ordinance for conditional use permit at 224 West Wilson.
This is an ordinance to allow a welding shop on the property located at 224 West Wilson in a mixed-use commercial industrial district. The Planning Commission recommends approval by a vote of 5-0. I'm sorry, Wendy, we should probably just keep you up there for a few, a few items.
You know, when you're wearing heels, it's always nice to sit down for even just a few
That's
moments.
true.
Okay, so this conditional use permit hearing was also held at the last Planning Commission. There was, again, no public comment, although the property owner was there. This is an area that we created a conditional use mixed use classification for, because if you've been on West Wilson, you'll know there are a variety of industrial uses there, but there are some other uses as well. And just immediately to the south are some residential uses and also further west as you go along Wilson, there's some residential. So it's kind of already got a mix of uses. And this property had at one point been retail, so the change to a more industrial-like use. And as our regulations require, there are some industrial uses that would be permitted by right in this kind of a district, and then there are some that require conditional use process. A welding operation is one of those. Excuse me. And as you know, welding can be any kind of scale. It could be something really small, more like what this application is, or it could be something rather large. And obviously, the scale of that use could have a great impact onto how it appears to the other properties and the kinds of things that would be stored and the kinds of traffic that would occur. This conditional use is on a property that's on the south side of the road. It's not that far from residential, but because it's a lone person with a small operation, it was the recommendation of staff and the recommendation of the Planning Commission that this conditional use be approved by the governing body. The conditions on this one were that the hours be limited to 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. and that outdoor storage would be screened from public view. And while the owner may not operate those specific hours, as things change or a need arises, that would allow them to do that. Are there questions about this use?
Trying to get my bearings, where this is located. It's second block west from Main, right?
Yeah.
So
Do
is
you
this,
have the picture right there, Commissioner? Or I can bring you mine.
did it recently change hands? I was thinking this was
It
the
did,
building.
yeah.
Okay, I think I know what it is. It was for sale at one time.
It
And
used to be it was most recently a seed operation, I believe.
okay, all right.
Okay.
Okay,
So the railroad's right here.
right. Okay, I just want to think. Okay, good.
Any other questions? Do I hear a motion?
Madam Mayor,
Commissioner?
I move that we approve the ordinance for conditional permit at 224 West Wilson.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
It has been moved and seconded to approve the ordinance for conditional use permit at 224 West Wilson. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, could we have the vote, please?
How do you vote? Commissioner Jorgensen?
Yes.
Commissioner Dickinson?
Yes.
Commissioner Kaler?
Yes.
Commissioner Skidmore?
Yes.
Mayor Reed?
I vote yes, motion carries. Item 12.
A resolution defining and declaring territorial limits and boundaries.
This is a resolution describing city limits, including property annexed in 2014, and rescinding the resolution 1594-12. One more time.
Oh, you know this one as well as I do, so I wasn't quite sure if you wanted me to come back up, but I'm happy to do it. This is the annexation. We just had one tract annexed in 2014, and that's the Underwood property that's at I-35 and K-68. Based on today's announcements, we'll expect some more next year, so we'll have this back. But this is an annual action if you've had annexation of property, so that you can re-notify all the folks that need to know the boundary changes of the city.
Are there any questions for Mrs. Lee?
And this rescinding this one resolution is just part of the process as well? I
Yes,
assume.
that was the previous description of the city limits, so that there's not a question later, which is the current
So we do
description
away
of
with
the
the old
city
one, bring
limits.
the new.
Yes, sir.
I understand. Okay.
Thank you, Wendy.
Good.
So do I hear a motion?
Madam Mayor, I make the motion we approve item 12.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
It has been moved and seconded to approve the resolution to define and declare territorial limits and boundaries. Is there any discussion? Can we have a roll call vote, please?
How do you vote, Commissioner Dickinson?
Yes.
Commissioner Kaler?
Yes.
Commissioner Skidmore?
Yes.
Commissioner Jorgensen?
Yes.
Mayor Reed?
I vote yes, and motion carries. Item 13.
The public hearing for 2014 budget amendments.
This public hearing has been called to consider amending the 2014 budget for the Airport Fund and Special Parks Fund. So at this time, I will open the public hearing. Mr. Byrd.
Good evening again. State statute allows municipalities the opportunity to look at their current year budget and see if there is a need for adjustment. Those adjustments can be made if the cash carryover into a particular fund was greater than anticipated, or if there were additional revenues that were unanticipated when the budget was drafted. We have two funds that meet those criteria this year. This is an annual, not necessarily an annual event, but we at least look at this on an annual basis to see if we have any funds. And we have had this over the last 3 or 4 years because we've been very active. The city's been very active. In the case of the Special Parks Fund, you'll recall that in 2013 we anticipated activity in both the playground and the Bark Park projects, and in fact there was quite a bit of money raised in 2013 towards those projects. Those monies were carried over into 2014, and as you all know, the projects were completed, and so we spent a great deal less in 2013 than we anticipated, and a great deal more in 2014 than we anticipated during the budget season a year and a half ago. And so there is a need for an additional $85,000 in the 2014 budget. In the airport fund, we've had, it's been an interesting fund over the last few years with the loss of the fixed base operator, and then the city operated the airport for part of last year, and then a new fixed base operator this year. And in the midst of that, we've had new contracts, which has created some additional revenues and some additional expenses. You'll recall that we bought a fuel truck for jet fuel out at the airport. We're asking for an additional $5,700 in the airport fund to make sure that we don't have any budget violations in that fund. And those are the only two funds that we're asking for amendments to this year. I'd stand for any questions.
Mr. Byrd, just for my re-education, what happens if we have a budget violation?
It shows up in our audit, which it doesn't reflect well on us.
Okay. Are there any questions for Mr. Byrd? Are there any comments from the public on this? Are there any comments from the public? If not, at this point, I would close the public hearing, and that would move us to item 14.
Acceptance of the 2014 budget amendments.
And this action would allow us to accept the budget amendments to the airport fund and to the special parks fund.
Just ask for affirmative action.
Okay. Do I hear a motion?
Madam Mayor,
Commissioner?
I move to accept the budget amendments as promoted by our budget director, Scott Byrd.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
It has been moved and seconded to accept the two budget amendments as we discussed here. Is there any Discussion? Can we have the vote, please?
How do you vote? Commissioner Kaler?
Yes.
Commissioner Skidmore?
Yes.
Commissioner Jorgensen?
Yes.
Commissioner Dickinson?
Yes.
Mayor Reed?
I vote yes, motion carries. Thank you. And last item of new business is number 15.
An ordinance authorizing sales tax election.
Mr. Bezick. There's no comment for me to read.
Just Mr. Beasley.
That's easy.
Gotta lower this. Wendy's taller than me. Before you, you have an ordinance that does a number of things. Primarily, it authorizes the city commission to ask the voters of Ottawa to vote for a sales tax in the amount of 1 cent, 1%. And I'd like to walk you through a few pieces of this. The ordinance itself authorizes two things. One is the special call election, which is set for June 2 of this year. I would note parenthetically that I've contacted Janet Paddock, the Franklin County Clerk, and she's good with this date. It meets all of her requirements, and it certainly gives us enough time to do the preparation and other documents necessary to make sure that this happens. The second thing it does is it authorizes the use of mail ballots, which is something that we've done in the past, but nonetheless requires specific authority. The ordinance also presents the question that you're going to place before the voters of Ottawa, stating specifically, shall the retailer's sales tax in the amount of 1 cent equal to 1% be levied in Ottawa, Kansas for a period of 10 years. Note parenthetically, this is a term-limited document. Following the date of said tax would first be collected by the Kansas Department of Revenue for the limited and continuing purpose of property tax stabilization, retirement of infrastructure, land acquisition, debt and development of a new industrial and business development park, and continued support of the general fund operations and capital needs, all pursuant to this particular ordinance. I would note for you that the purposes mirror some of the purposes that were in the previous sales tax that was authorized by the voters about 8.5 years ago. And there's some additional language dealing with economic development, support of the industrial park, and other such, as you can see in this. One last point for you to consider, if approved, and we're certainly recommending that you present this to the voters, immediately we will present this to the Franklin County Clerk for her execution as well, as required by statute. I believe it is staff's recommendation that you approve this ordinance. If approved, this will authorize asking the voters for the ability to collect that 1 cent sales tax. The sales tax itself will be collected after the expiration of the current sales tax, so this is not in addition to. It will begin the day after the previous one expires. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
And just for clarification, that's June of next year,
Yes.
correct? Yes.
Yes, the vote is June of this year, the expiration is June of next year.
Okay.
Yes,
June of 2015.
right.
Okay.
He's jumped ahead of you.
Yeah. There you go. Time flies.
Any other questions for Mr. Bezick?
And our current rate now is 875, is that right?
That's correct.
So,
That's the gross rate, I mean.
The gross total.
all
Combined.
Put together.
All the
Yeah.
taxes, right. And so net increase would put us to 9.25 if this passes, net total. Because one drops off.
It'd be an increase of 0.5%.
Yes, the current city sales tax is 1.6, I believe. 1.1? Then it would increase off of that.
Okay.
Other questions for Mr. Bezick? Then at this point, I would entertain a motion.
Madam Mayor,
Commissioner?
I would like to make this motion that we go ahead and authorize the sales tax election as Bob described.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
It has been moved and seconded to authorize the ordinance as stated in item 15 for the sales tax election. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, can we proceed to vote, please?
How do you vote, Commissioner Skidmore?
Yes.
Commissioner Jorgensen?
Yes.
Commissioner Dickinson?
Yes.
Commissioner Kaler?
Yes.
Mayor Reed?
I vote yes, the motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Bezick. And thank you for your work preparing that for us, too, with the wording and everything. That will move us on down to the report by city manager.
Commissioners, I don't have anything else to report. Thank you for a good day. Thank you for your work for this community.
Thank you, Richard. Then we will move on to reports by city commissioners. John, do you want to start this evening? Commissioner Dickinson?
Sure. Comments kind of about the day that we've had. We've done a lot of things as a city the last couple of years with quality of life issues, parks and trails and all those kind of things. But I think one of the most important quality of life issues is jobs. So without jobs, we don't have parks and we don't have trails and we don't have people living here. So I think that we made that step today, and today is a quality of life issue. It's even more important than a playground or a trail. So I'm very happy to be part of that decision, and I'm excited about where we're headed.
Commissioner Kaler?
To add on to what Commissioner Dickinson had to say, it was almost, and this has run through my mind all day today, it was almost 70 years to the day that my mother's family moved to Ottawa. And they moved to Ottawa when, I'm not even going to tell you, she was barely breathing, I'm just going to say. And they moved to Ottawa because of a job. And my grandfather was the general manager of the H.D. Lee plant here in town. And they stayed in Ottawa because of the people, not because of a job. But they moved here for a job. And today what we did was create capacity for more families to move here for a job, but to stay here for the people and the amenities. And so I think it's a great start for our community and an opportunity to bring the beauty of our town to many families. So I'm very excited.
Thank you. Commissioner Skidmore?
Just to continue on that same vein, it's very exciting, I agree. I think the fact that all the votes were unanimous tells me something, that this is something that we've been long overdue for and very much welcomed by both the city and the county commission. And just the collaborative effort, I just was really impressed with everybody's attitude toward it from the get-go when we started talking about this a year ago. We all saw the vision, we all saw what the result could be, and today is kind of like a graduation day. It really is the beginning, it's not the end, it really is the beginning of what we have to offer. And so I'm really excited about the next 3, 4, 5 years out there, and then for the next generation. And on the sales tax, I'm glad we're going to proceed with that as well. I know that a sales tax is regressive and that it affects the lower income people, but I think what we've passed today too will help the lower income people more with better opportunities, better jobs, better paying jobs. And I think their income will more than offset any increased sales tax they'll pay at the store. So I'm really excited about both things today, and I'm going to sleep well tonight.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Jorgensen?
Well, there's been a lot of said today about the collaborative effort of the city and the county in putting together this new, I'm going to call it a SECO, City-County Industrial Park, a SECO Park. And it creates, it's creating jobs, and just to drill down to what I've been thinking about today is when I was mayor, I went and talked to the 7th graders at the middle school, and they asked me some questions about how this will affect them, and also the elementary school kids, and just how city government works. And the jobs are not being created by the city, but the opportunity for jobs is. We're making ground that's available for an industry to come to town, and with an industry in town, that creates jobs, and that's jobs for parents, it's jobs for our young people to stay in our community, and with jobs comes people for those jobs, and those people are going to have a place to live, and they're going to want to spend their money in the community, and that just snowballs. It's a quality of life issue where people think of, really when they're talking about quality of life, it's opportunities to shop at stores in our communities, it's opportunities to eat in restaurants in our communities. And with the people that come into our community, is rooftops, it just enhances the entire economic development of our community. Several years ago, when I came to this community, Main Street was pretty vibrant, there were a lot of businesses on Main Street. We had a Woolworths, we had several clothing stores, we had a J.C. Penney's, and several mom and pop type stores. The times have really changed since then. We watched those stores kind of wither up and disappear on our Main Street. And so really, times at Kansas have changed over the last 25 years. But this is something that's going to keep our community vibrant and put it on a stage to move into the future years, future decades. Another issue that we talked about and passed an ordinance authorizing a sales tax election tonight is something that our community is going to be able to vote on. We didn't pass a sales tax today, but we passed the opportunity for our citizens to vote on a sales tax. And that's something that I don't take lightly. My grandfather, I've talked about him several times over the past 9 years, and I got a lot of sage advice from him through the years. And he lived 16 miles from a town in South Dakota that passed a sales tax. He was a farmer. He traded in that community. He was upset that community passed that sales tax, because when he came to town, he had to support the things in that community. He was very upset. Instead of driving the 16 miles, he drove 60 miles the other way to shop in another community so that he did not have to pay that sales tax. So that's part of my upbringing. If I was explaining that today to him, I would really explain the good qualities of this sales tax. We live along an interstate. People shop as they pass by. They buy gasoline, they buy food and so forth from the community. They help to pay for our quality of life, our parks and our streets by doing that. We are a hub. Our rural people come and shop in our community, but they also use our amenities while they're here. And so it helps it helps to kind of spread the cost of this community. Only people in Ottawa, only our citizens that are registered to vote will be voting on the sales tax, and that's how our democracy works. So I guess I'm kind of rambling on, so I'm going to stop talking now. This has been a momentous day today. We're passing the ordinance authorizing a sales tax election, and we purchased 320 acres of ground, which is roughly the size of our present industrial park. And you think about the number of jobs that we have in our present industrial park on the north side of town, and hope that shortly we'll have another good number of jobs on the south side as well.
It sounds like all of us have had a lot to think about through the day. Lots of comments have been made under report by mayor, I should say, I guess. And a lot of what keeps coming back to me is, large cities do this type of activity pretty much on a regular basis. They bring in a new company, they build a park, industrial park, that type of thing. Kind of no big deal to them. But the word that kept coming up today in many, many people's comments were community. And I feel like this community is what has brought this progress about. We are different than a large city. We are different than another city that brings in new businesses. We bring them in because, as Blake said, we want people to live here. We want people to have a life that's worth living in this community. So it's just been a very, very exciting day. I think all of us have ended it with, it's great to be able to get back together again and tie it all together in the evening, but what a great way to spend the day as well. So one other thing I wanted to point out, is if you see it on your announcements, it just says Leadership Academy graduation For those that don't know, the city has done something different this year, and I probably am not describing it exactly correctly, but several departments within the city have looked at leaders, potential leaders, and people that have shown leadership skills and development potential in their departments at all different ages. It's not that they're young, not that they're old or anything like that, but they were selected and were able to attend our first Leadership Academy, and each team came up with a project that then they presented to the City Commission that we will be taking action on one of those projects. And this will be their graduation, so it will be the first, we hope, of an annual type of an event. But I think it's a great benefit that we can give to our employees as a city that then we all benefit from as citizens of this city, because we continue the succession process to continue to build new leaders within our own staff. So, and with that, your other announcements are there on your page, and I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye. We are adjourned.